Well, and here we are. 18 interviews, probably 10 hours of speaking to teachers, many emails, a lot of publication, a lot of YouTube shorts, a lot of posts on my page, a lot of engagement from the community. After all of this, here we are. Here we are at the live stream Q&A for From the Horse's Mouth. So today I'm just going to present the agenda to you all. We're going to start with just some of my reflections on this amazing series where you have heard the stories of fantastic people, like some of the most inspirational people who I have ever met on the platform. I have a feeling that it's going to take a few minutes for people to drop in, for us to, get everything going, and that's completely fine. I have invited some of the interviewees to actually sit down with us, and hopefully they will be in the chat to answer any of your questions. So this is not just a time for me. This is a time for all of you as well. The people who have watched these videos, or the people who were even part of this series, the interviewees themselves, they have an opportunity as well to chip in and to ask different questions. Those questions could be directed at me, or they could be directed at one another. Let's see how it goes. So there are three parts of this live Q&A. We'll be here for about an hour. The first part is a little bit of a reflection, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about my own reflections while people get, settled in, while people get comfortable. All right. After that, we're going to have the live Q&A, so anybody could pop into the chat. They could ask questions. You could ask questions to me, or you could ask questions in general to our panel of interviewees. There are 15 of them. If any of you need to refresh your memory on who is who and who said what, then you could definitely check out the playlist. I'll just put a little link right here, a link to the From the Horse's Mouth playlist, just in case if any of you need to jog your memory. All right. There we go. Awesome. All right, so there's the link to the playlist right there, just in case if anybody has to check it out there. After that, at the end, I'm going to actually make a big announcement. Hello, Almet. Yes, I'm glad you're back too. The only person who interviewed me, it's great to know. Well, I would say great to see you, but it's great to know you're there, Almet. All right, great. So, yes, we're going to finish this live stream with a very special um, announcement, which a lot of you may have already guessed, actually, if you look at my name. And I'm going to explain a little bit why I'm making this announcement and why I'm making this change to the channel. And then finally, after that, I guess a fourth part is if anybody has general questions about italki, about teaching online, go ahead and let me know. All right. So this is a little bit of everything. It's a reflection for the people who were part of this amazing interview series. It's a reflection for me, and it's an opportunity for other people to learn and to have their questions answered. All right, fantastic. So let's get started with the with my reflection on this series. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to speak as if you don't know what this series was, as if you've never even seen it before. Okay, so this series is called From the Horse's Mouth. I called it From the Horse's Mouth because I thought it was a catchy idiom. I basically wanted to find out more about the stories of other people who are teaching on italki. Not just italki, but teaching languages online in general. So what prompted me to do this? Well, actually, the reason why is because I have recently joined a few social media channels related to italki, related to Preply, just to find out what's kind of going on in the ether of social media. And I found out more than I had bargained before. I was really surprised by, the different stories that people had. Some of them were pretty nostalgic for me, actually. Like some of them kind of took me back to when I was a to when I actually started off on italki, right? Hello, Alessandra. Welcome. This is what really prompted me to actually do this series because I was on social media. I was hearing these incredible stories, people talking about, for example, the different dilemmas of whether you should eat in class or not, whether you should, like apparently one person was saying that they went into a class and their student was on the toilet, which has never happened to me, and I'm glad that it does not bring back any memories for me. But just these really kind of like in-depth, very deep experiences, and I know those two examples don't seem too deep, but just like these experiences that I have not had for a very long time or I have never had. Some of them are challenging, some of them are very inspiring. Like some of these people share their experiences about just having a student for the first time say, I trust you, or I really appreciate our classes, or you're the best teacher I've ever had. And those firsts are some of the most special moments you get as a teacher. And when you're online, when you're in this one-to-one format, it's even more special. So, hearing about these different stories made me think, wow, I am existing in this box. And my goal with this YouTube channel was to give other online language teachers um, something to, ideally aspire to, right? Not meaning myself so something to aspire to, but hopefully to give them a little bit of a trajectory by which they could improve their teaching, for learners to improve their learning, for people to understand a little bit more about the platforms before they get on them, whether that be italki or Preply or Lingoda, right? So this was my really real goal when I started on italki. There was like nothing on there for me. So I wanted to provide something to people, but I realized that I don't want to become out of touch. And I don't want to, I guess I don't want to veer too much into my own experience without hearing those of others. That's why I started from the horse's mouth. So I made a post and I was really surprised by the amount of engagement I got. A lot of people reached out to me, and I scheduled 15 interviews, and I had to close it off. Other people wanted to be interviewed, but I couldn't take any more because I already had 15. And I think that as it went, it was just the perfect flow. It was just the best way that it could have gone. And I see Almat is here. He's the one who kind of topped off the this playlist with his video, which dropped today, right before this live stream. He was the final interview. And I think just the way you see it kind of flow from one interview to another, not only did it just happen to be perfect, the way that everything lined up and the way that, one experience kind of weaved into another, but it was also perfect in the way that I was able to gain more knowledge about how to interview people, and how to listen and how to ask questions and appropriate questions. And while we talk about questions, I will be speaking about some of my greatest, one of my only regrets of this series as well. So I'll talk about that in a moment. So now, what did I expect? I expected to speak about platforms. And as you probably see, there are a few people who spoke to me about platforms. When we look at Mark Witzman, who teaches on italki but has a profile on Amazing Talker. We talk about Haone and Nika. When we talk about Alessandra, when we talk about Tamam, and I believe, yeah, Almat teaches on Profi, of course. Many teachers on this list actually teach on multiple platforms, and I think that's really useful knowledge, because this is, a common thing that online teachers have to deal with. I mean, it's very precarious. out there. It could be difficult to teach and to make enough money to make ends meet. And for that reason, we have multiple platforms that we teach on. Aside from that, I expected to talk about money. I expected to talk about bookings. I expected to talk about retaining students as well, right? And this is all that we did talk about. I expected to speak about challenges as well, maybe about materials, maybe about different kinds of students, right? So talking about teaching children versus teaching adults. And we did talk about this, but we spoke about so much more, so much more. We also spoke about, gosh, like polyglots. I mean, when I was talking to Kenny, when I was talking to Edmilson, to Almat, we spoke about native speakerism and some of the difficulties that not just non-native speakers face, but also native speakers face in relearning their own languages. I spoke to Alessandra, I spoke to Amber, I spoke to Abby, three native speakers of English, and that was very useful as well. We spoke a lot about language learning, which was a little bit of a surprise to me as well. A lot about language learning, polyglots. Chiara and I spoke about critical approaches to teaching languages online, which was really useful. We spoke about, being a mother or being a parent and teaching online and the difficulties that go along with that. Teaching group classes versus individual classes. We spoke about, like the common challenges with Khalil. We spoke about the challenge, not just the imposter syndrome of being a new teacher, but also the imposter syndrome of being a new teacher in training, right? So he spoke about his CELTA, and he spoke about how when he got started, a lot of the other teachers already had prior experience. So him being newer to the game in this way was a little bit intimidating. So talking about teacher certification and the teacher training courses was very eye-opening, because I think that, for me, I've done 2 teacher training courses, but I'm only one man and everybody has their own experiences, right? I've never taken a CELTA. I've never taken a TEFL. I've taken a TESOL and a CTESOL, right? So, I have my own experience, and it was great to hear from other people's experiences as well, right? And talking to Osama about English for specific purposes, about content knowledge, about the different teacher development programs they have on other platforms, because again, I teach mainly on italki. Well, I spoke with Anika about how great some of the teacher training, like the webinars, are on Preply, for example, where I spoke with Haone about this as well. And of course, Osama spoke my ear off about this, and in the best way possible. Very, very insightful. The way that he spoke about Skying, about the people there, about the setup. And I think this is not a criticism to specific platforms, but this is just a way for different platforms to improve, hopefully, and take good care of their teachers, right? Because, if teachers are respected and workers are respected, then ideally they end up respecting their clients, and it's kind of contagious, and it's a bit of a domino effect. So in a nutshell, those were some of the the surprises, where I was pleasantly surprised. Um, I think the biggest surprise was with Chiara. In my chat with Chiara, she really, the way that we spoke about, being critical of the critical, God, it really opened my eyes. Speaking to Sophia about, the different difficulties that Latin American teachers face, and of course talking to Almat, where he actually interviewed me for the last few minutes. That was one of the biggest surprises too, but in the best way possible. So that is it for my reflections. If any of you have questions, I'll open it up in just a moment to ask me questions. For the next 2 minutes, I just want to quickly go through all of the interviews so that I give each interviewee their fair due. All right. So, we started the interview with Ryan. Ryan is a teacher of Bislama, the only Bislama teacher on Italki. He also teaches English. He learns multiple languages. He is a polyglot. He lives in Australia, I believe, and yeah, we spoke about his background in hospitality, for example, where he finds materials, what it's like teaching kids, what it's like teaching on multiple platforms. From there, we went on to Mark Wietzman, a teacher from South Africa. He has a background in the legal system, in business and real estate. He actually began teaching, I believe, in Thailand and Vietnam, right? And that was kind of cool for me because I started in Thailand too, so the same kind of neck of the woods. And I think it's really useful to get an idea of what it's like to teach in these places in Southeast Asia specifically, because a lot of teachers go there to teach for multiple reasons. And for some of you, some of the viewers, you may be a person just who is starting off. This might be your first teaching job and you may fall in love, and then you want some hands-on in-person experience. And just like Haone, who wants to go to Vietnam, you may go to Vietnam or Cambodia or Laos or Thailand, right? So it's really valuable to hear these experiences from the horse's mouth. So thank you very much for that, Mark. Yeah, moving on to Anika, she was like the sweetheart of all sweethearts. She was very friendly and personable. She is a teacher from India, from Bangalore, and I believe she's studying journalism and tourism. And we spoke about her experience on pre-ply. She's actually a pre-ply teacher, and it means the world to me to know that even being named EnglishTeacherRyan, I am still gaining, I'm gaining viewers or subscribers from other platforms as well. So that means a lot. And we spoke what it was like, to be an Indian person teaching English, where Indians are kind of situated in the English speaking world, for example. Yeah, it was great speaking to Anika. She is young, she is new, but she is driven and motivated. And so is Haone. Haone was just a breath of fresh air. She is from Botswana and she teaches on Amazing Talker, Preply, and italki. I'll let you watch the interview, but yeah, that was one of the that was one of the top ones for me for sure. And she gave a lot of useful tips on teaching students and teaching group classes versus one-on-one. Tamam. This was the fifth interview. Unfortunately, it was cut a little bit short due to connection issues. But Tamam is a medical student who lives in Syria, and he offered great insight into teaching on Polytripper, a lesser known platform. And I'll just type this in here just so that you could all check that out. So that's Polytripper right there. And it was really useful to hear his take on teaching on Polytripper and different platforms. From there, Abby. And Abby is it's hard to even put Abby into words. She is just a ray of sunshine and she is an absolute firework of a conversationalist. She edits a lot of my documents, which I post on Patreon. And she is a teacher who's from England. She's a newer teacher. She came from a different employment background. And she is, just kind of starting from scratch, but she's in her TESOL or TEFL right now, and she's killing it. So that was great to speak to her. Another native English speaker from America this time, Amber. Amber, I've seen her around on a lot of my videos, commenting. She's been a great supporter. And Amber gave us a lot of insight into not only her teaching experience, but also her learning experience on italki, taking lessons in Arabic and Russian. Edmilson, what a friendly guy, like just full of smiles, right? Edmilson is from South Africa. He teaches Portuguese and English, actually, and he's learning a lot more. And we spoke about learning languages, we spoke about teaching languages, and how South Africans are perceived in the English speaking world. Okay, from there, I spoke to two Latinas, Sophia. First of all, Sophia is one of my students in my free lessons, which I host every week, every Thursday. And if anybody is interested in the free lessons, just go over to my other YouTube channel, English with Teacher Ryan, and you'll get more information. You'll be able to see actual live, real class every class I do with my students. So you'll be able to see what the style is like. And then if you just reach out to me at online English teacher Ryan at gmail.com, I could add your name to the list. Okay. And I'd be happy for you to, to join the classes, but you just have to contact me first. So if you are learning English, or if one of your students are looking for free classes, let me know. Okay. Speaking with Sophia, we spoke about her background as a businesswoman, as an actress. Spoke to Kiara, as I said before, about critical pedagogy. That was so eye-opening. Spoke to Khalil. He's from Morocco. Sophia's from Argentina. Kiara is from is it Chile? Oh gosh, yeah, Chile. Yeah, she's from Chile. Khalil is from Morocco, from Casablanca. We spoke about English being his third language and what it's been like teaching English. Um, Kenny, polyglot from Belgium, and wow, what an interesting what an interesting person with an interesting story. He is very driven. He is very motivated. I love his expression that Italki is like my house. He said two things in the interview which really resonated with me. The first one is that progress isn't just improving, it's also recognizing your mistakes, right? And another thing he said is that, like the most important thing in a class is what you do in the last 5 minutes. And I know I'm paraphrasing and I'm probably butchering the sentiment, but those two ideas have really resonated with me. And that is one of the reasons why I did this. I did it for other viewers to get other people's perspectives. And of course, for me to grow as well. And hopefully for the interviewees to promote their profiles in this little community we have right here. So speaking of which, if anybody is interested in sharing their profile, you could feel free to throw it into the chat whenever you want to. You could put a link to your profile so people could check it out, or even if you have any for the interviewees, if they have social media, they could feel free to throw that down there in the chat as well. All right, and finally, the final interviewee was Almat. Almat is such an interesting guy, teaching 5 languages, learning a handful more, learning Italian. Hope you're able to teach one day those languages, Almat. Speaking to somebody from Kazakhstan was very important as well, because a lot of my students are from Russia and from other post-Soviet, former Soviet bloc countries like Ukraine, Kazakhstan, a few from Uzbekistan, Belarus, right? So it was very nice to speak to somebody from, obviously we're speaking about a whole different part of the world than Russia, I suppose. But sharing a border and also sharing some commonalities with the experiences of growing up in an environment where some people were speaking Russian, but people were also speaking Kazakh, right? So that was very insightful for me, and I believe it will be valuable for um, our viewers. And speaking of viewers, the floor is yours now. All right. So I am going to shut my trap. I'm going to allow any and all of you to put questions into the chat. You could address a question to me, or you could address a question to a specific interviewee. All right. Just put their name. So, for example, if you have a question for Almat or Alessandra, then you could put a question for them. All right. But if you don't mind, I'm just going to start. All right, so I'm going to jump in here. I don't know, Alessandra, I see that you've messaged there. Are you still there, Alessandra or Almat? A race to see who who responds first. So if Alessandra or Almat is there. Yes, Alessandra is there. Okay, so I'm going to ask the first question. So I just like to ask the question. Okay. I just want to address a question to Alessandra. And the question is about tapif, because you went to France for tapif, I believe it's called. So I just want you to tell us what your experience was like with a tapif and what it is. And if you could just like type that into the chat in as few sentences as possible, that would be great, because I don't want to force you to uh, be writing a full essay if you don't have to. Okay. And for Almat, okay, so first of all, for Alessandra, question is, what is tapif? Okay. And for Almat, I'm going to ask you a question. Um, which language, see, these are some of the questions I forgot to ask you in the actual interviews, all right? So which language do you like teaching the most? Okay. All right, so I have two questions for the interviewees, and don't worry, I'm going to be opening this up for um, other viewers. Matt says, what a great question. We're off to a good start. I'm turning the tables on you, Almet. I'm asking you questions now after you interviewed me. And by the way, this is kind of a common thread you'll notice in the interviews, is the fact that I asked certain interviewees certain questions. They are semi-structured interviews, as you'll notice, right? Um, I it came to a point where I didn't want to ask all the interviewees the same questions because I wanted to get some new information. But unfortunately, that would kind of leave out some possible rich answers from other interviewees. So, for example, I asked a lot of the first interviewees about native speakerism, right? And after the third or fourth interviewee, I was like, okay, I've already asked this four times. Maybe if I only have a limited amount of time with an interviewee, I'm not going to ask that to everybody. I might prioritize other questions. But at the same time, maybe Almat had a very interesting thing to say about native speakerism, or maybe, another person who is near to the end of the list of interviewees. So this is something that, a little bit of a miss for me, right? Like this is something I don't regret, but unfortunately I had to kind of trade off. So I had to trade away asking certain questions in order to not sound repetitive and not make the interview seem dull. Okay. All right. So I'm sure Almat is answering, Alessandra is answering. So people who are interested in the questions I have just posed, just keep watching the chat, and I'm sure they'll come at you with some information. While they're doing that, does anybody have a question for me or for any other interviewee? As I said, you could just throw the question down in the chat right there. Okay, Alessandra says it's a program that allows one to work in France as a language assistant, assigned to schools ranging from primary to high school grades. For example, teach in primary school 12 hours a week. Great. And the reason why I asked you about that is because one of my colleagues just mentioned Tapif a few days ago. And I thought about Alessandra. So for anybody who's interested in teaching in a different country and teaching in France, that could be a possibility for sure. Okay, very good. So I've opened up the floor. If anybody has questions for me or for any of our interviewees, you could go ahead. Not everyone at once. All right. Almat said it's difficult to choose one. But if I were obliged to do so, I'd probably go with Spanish, as I believe my personality suits perfect. Yes, with the one of the people coming from Spanish speaking countries. Nice, excellent. And actually, I was thinking about you today because I just had an interview with a teacher in Espanol. Yeah, so that's kind of the a new project for me is interviewing teachers in different languages, right? And I'm going to be I have been doing this for different reasons. The first reason is because a lot of people do not speak English and therefore they don't have any access to my content. So that would be good to have more access in their own L1s. And another reason is so that I could be in the shoes of some of these lovely interviewees, and I could be the one speaking, a language that's not my L1. And finally, it allows me to practice my Spanish. So I had an interview in Spanish today, and Almat is a Spanish teacher. He does teach Spanish. You teach on Spanish on italki as well, Almat, correct? Yeah, so if anyone is interested in learning Spanish, English, Russian, or Kazakh, I believe you could find Almat on italki. And if you want to learn French with Almat, you could go to his profile on Profi. Alessandra says it's a really great opportunity, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's looking for entry-level work in France after university. Great, awesome. Thank you very much. All right, happy days. Great stuff. So does anybody have any questions regarding From the Horse's Mouth? I'll probably keep this open for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. We'll see how it goes. And if nobody has any questions, then I'll move on to my big announcement. And after that, I'll open up a little Q&A for general italki or general online language teaching questions. Okay. All right. Alessandra, fire away. Go for it. Wow, very nice. Excellent. Why did you stop teaching French? It honestly feels like a different like lifetime, right? Like sometimes when people ask me which languages I've taught, I don't even consider French. And when they ask me where I've taught, like I don't even consider pre-ply, right? I honestly, it doesn't even come to my mind, right? Um, even though it was a very important period, I think it's because of just how busy I was. This was last May, literally a month ago, about a month ago, a year ago. Where am I? So okay, all right. So when I started on Preply, the reason why I started there, of course, is because hello, Osama. Nice picture. The reason why I began on Preply is because they would accept, they had a lower benchmark on the CEFR for the teachers they would accept from what I know or from what I knew. They accepted teachers who knew a language at C1 level, such as myself, en français. And I didn't need C2 complete proficiency as they require on italki. That was the main reason. And that was kind of in tune with my goals as well, because or my beliefs about language, because I do think that as long as you are considerably higher than the person who you are teaching and you know how to teach a language and you know enough about the language, even if you're not completely proficient, I believe that you could still teach it even better than a proficient speaker can. Okay, so that's why I began. My first few classes, so I taught maybe 20 classes on there, made probably like $20 because because of the commission and all that jazz, right? And a lot of my students were from America actually, and my price was low. And it wasn't because my price was low. It was mainly because I wanted to teach French partially so that I could, have like conversational lessons. But a lot of the students were literally from scratch. And I wonder if Alessandra could attest to this or not. When I was teaching on there, a lot of these students did not know um, anything, like any French, right? Like they literally knew the names of bottles of wine, right? And that's totally fine. That's totally okay. They prepared me for it. They let me know beforehand. I actually began developing a curriculum for A1 French level learners. And that's something I'd like to do in the future, by the way, as well. Develop materials in other languages. But the main reason why I stopped doing it is because I kind of I think I knew that there was like a ceiling at which I could really rise before, Preply, specifically teaching French on Preply would not satisfy me anymore or satisfy my wishes. And around the same time, my italki page exploded. It just took off. Like last April and like last spring was amazing. It was really, I was getting so many bookings, and right now I'm getting as many bookings as I could handle. So I'm happy right now. But the difference is that I was teaching full time. So I was getting like so many bookings. That, to answer your question, those are the two reasons, Alessandra. The low price on Preply and the fact that I couldn't teach French on italki since I am not fully competent in French. And also the fact that my italki just went berserk in the best way possible. Those are the reasons why, but I'd love to teach again in the future. Okay. Very good. And then Almat said, yes, exactly. I teach Spanish on both italki and Profi. I'm looking forward to having some of those lovely conversations. Yes, hope French and Spanish are going well around. Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe I'll book a lesson with you sometime, Almat, and you'll be able to see how my French and Spanish are going. Osama, so nice to see you. Why do you think Preply charges such a commission in contrast to italki? Great question. And if I were better versed on the business side of things, then I'd probably have a good idea. So I think yeah. God, I think I've thought so many things and then stopped thinking them. Like at first I thought it's because they don't have a high retention rate of students. So at least when they have new students come in, at least they could, Preply could collect all of the commission from that student so that if they leave, at least they have, kind of maximized the amount of profits that they could make off the student. That's what I was thinking at first. Then I started thinking maybe it's a little bit to kind of challenge the loyalty of the teachers on Preply and to see just how dedicated and how motivated they are. Another idea I have, and Osama and I spoke about this with Skying, is the fact that Preply has fantastic, in fairness to them, they do have fantastic training. They do have fantastic webinars. And I spoke about this with Haone and Anika. I think that they have very good webinars and teacher training processes. So I think that might have something to do with the fact that they collect so much from these from the first class. Well, they collect 100% from the first class, and then you could only really get to 18% at the best, which is still not as good as italki. So those are the three ideas I have, and I'm always kind of, like I don't think about Preply often enough as an italki teacher to really, think critically about this, but those are some ideas that I have. Oui, absolument. Alessandra, j'espère. Okay, and Osama, yeah, they do provide some training, but I guess it is still not a good deal. Okay, all right. Osama, I wanted to throw that question back to you. Do you have any idea why Preply has a higher commission rate than italki? Wow, they don't accept Syrians. Iranian. Oh, okay, that opens up a whole new can of worms and something I didn't know. Okay. So I have 2 questions for you. Well, maybe we have 2 questions for Preply. Um, but, like the first part, so the first question, Osama, I just wonder if you think there's any reason. Oh, okay, because of the US sanctions. Okay, gotcha, gotcha. Yeah. Wow, I never knew that. In fact, it's interesting because to me, my idea of pre-apply due to the amount of teachers has always been they are like they are not more like progressive or anything like that, but they're just more like open, like it's easier to get started on there because of the fact that I was able to do that at C1 level and because of just the amount of teachers, right? Like I mean, there's probably triple or I think there's at least double the amount of teachers on pre-apply as there are on italki. So hearing that from you about the how they don't accept Syrians or Iranians due to the U.S. sanctions, yeah, that's interesting. I had no idea about that, but thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you very much. Are there any platforms that you would suggest that Syrians or Iranians do teach on, Osama? Um, And I know this is becoming like an interview for Osama instead of I'm I'm just putting him in the hot seat. So they don't allow you to go off the website and conduct lessons via Skype or Zoom. Yeah. So they back end their back end costs might be higher. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Interesting. That's a really interesting point. I never thought about that. I never knew that actually that you're not allowed to go off. Hmm. Okay. And yes, Osama, if you have any suggestions of other platforms for Syrian people watching, for Iranian people watching, please throw them in. While we're waiting, if anybody else has any questions for me, any questions about this series from the horse's mouth, or any questions for the interviewees, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Okay. 52 Talks, another platform I had never heard about before, and I am going down the rabbit hole, sir. 52 Talks. Did I read that wrong? 52 Talks. Never heard about that before. These are the ones I know for sure do not accept Syrians. Okay. I haven't found any others with the same policies. Okay. Okay, Almat has a question. Have you heard about an event called Polyglot Gathering? Yes, I absolutely have. In fact, I had there was a student who booked a lesson with me. She's an italki teacher as well, and she was telling me about this video. I've seen videos. Sorry, about this conference. I've seen videos about the polyglot gathering anyway. Could you tell us a little bit about this, Alnat, or is there any like question you have specifically about this? I mean, it'd be great to go one day. I'd love to go and to meet other people, but I want to get my levels a little bit, get them to where they were at before I head over. Because I thought the polyglot gathering was in like Brussels or somewhere in Europe. So if I'm going to go all the way over there, I may as well be able to speak one or two of the languages. Or maybe I could just hop in virtually. We'll see. This is going to be a big year for language learning, folks. You're going to be able to hear me struggle through Spanish language interviews. Yay. Just online? Good question. I don't know. I just assumed that there was an online one. So I'm not saying they're going to organize both online and in-person events. Nice. The in-person one will take place 1st to 6th of June. Okay, it's coming up in Terasan. Okay. Or Teresin. Okay, close to Warsaw. Excellent stuff. Fantastic stuff. Okay. Excellent stuff. I'll try to find the link for registration. So register. polyglot gathering 2022. Okay. Polyglot gathering. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Even if I just sit there and like put on my fingers the whole time. I found this one right here. I believe that's the one you're talking about. Yeah, in Terracine. And it's online. Ooh, the online one is coming up, folks. It's coming up. Yeah, I mean, I spoke to a lot of polyglots um, in this series. Okay, so it's €50 for people who would like to attend the online version. Okay. It's not really important to speak many languages to participate to that event. So as long as you love languages and everything, yeah, of course, everyone is welcome. Of course, yeah, that's great. I do for the record, I do feel welcome, and I feel from what I've experienced, I find that I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but polyglots are some of the most open people I've ever met, and they're probably the most patient people with language learners are polyglots from my experience, right? So I definitely wouldn't worry about being shunned with not knowing so many languages, but I suppose I would just love to use this opportunity to the best of my ability, right? So that's why I'd like to have a good enough level to at least like participate actively, if that makes sense. Yeah. But as Almat said, like everyone's welcome for sure. Online one, it'll take place soon. Yeah, exactly. 28th to the 1st of May. All right. Excellent. Well, who knows? Maybe I'll go and maybe I'll make a little video debriefing my experience at the polyglot gathering. That'd be pretty fun. Yes, of course. First time participating in this event. Oh, congrats. Yeah. Yeah, like I've been telling myself I'd go for the last like 2 years or something like that. So that's really cool. Okay, so we're going to close this off. This part about for the horse's mouth. I just have one question before we finish, and I have it for Almat. Do you have a polyglot who particularly inspires you, like a kind of source of inspiration in terms of polyglots? That could be a public figure like Richard Simcott, or it could even be just like a family member that you have. In fact, this question's for everybody in the group. Does anybody have a polyglot or a language speaker who really influences them and really kind of motivates them? For me, I'd say it's pretty much like the vast majority of the people I spoke to in this series who speak multiple languages. Um, yeah, basically most of my students who I meet who are really yes, Alessandra, thanks for coming to the rescue. Thanks for coming to the rescue because that's exactly who I was thinking about, and I was like, I forgot what the person's name is, Tim Donor. So, actually, that is one of the video of Tim Donor where he's speaking like a bunch of languages, and people can contest what makes somebody a real polyglot and what is true proficiency open for debate. But basically, when I'm having a bad day with language learning, or at least when I was language learning a lot, when I'm having a bad day, one of the videos I go to watch to give me motivation and inspiration is Tim Donor for sure. Osama says, might be strange, but there is this cute 11-year-old girl that I teach. Oh, that's awesome. No, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. Which languages does she speak, Osama? Yeah, lost his name too. Oh, it changed your life. Yep. Yeah, it's very inspirational. especially like the range of different languages he speaks, because it's not just from one language family. It's not like ba 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 through the Romance languages. It's a really good, great spectrum. Yeah. Oh, someone says English, German, Spanish, Malaysian. Wow, look at that. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. And speaking of students, I actually have a video coming out tomorrow where I speak with my student Cadence. She is a 12-year-old girl from Hong Kong, and I will be releasing a teaching demonstration from a conversational lesson with her. She has improved just so much. So when Osama just brought up his 11-year-old student, just made me think, oh yeah, I gotta tell them about Cadence. Yeah. Um, yeah, it seems like a lot of you enjoy the real teaching demonstrations, like the recordings from actual lessons. So I'm going to be popping a few more of those in there. All right. Okay, last few comments, and then I'll wrap this up with a little with my announcement. Okay, I admire several of them, but I was particularly stunned by a Russian girl named Bella Deviatkina. Okay, all right, fantastic. There's actually this Ukrainian woman, and I forget her name. She has a YouTube channel, and her pronunciation is barely distinguishable from the standard American accent. Like absolutely incredible. And a lot of my Russian students tend to be very impressed by her, like very kind of inspired by her, but I totally forget her name. Um, but she's a big enough she's a big enough YouTuber. Like if you go on YouTube, and I'm sure if I just type in Ukrainian woman English YouTuber, I think she's from the Ukraine. What's her name? I can't find her here. Yeah, I'm sure like improve English pronunciation. I'm sure she'll be like one of these, one of the first ones. Okay. There are just so many of these channels, you know. So it's yeah, I can't find it, but I'll find it after, and I'll put it in the yeah, I'll put it below. God, I wish I could find it. Okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just being obsessive. Do polyglots that we don't like qualify? Oh yes, Osama. Here we go. The tea. Let me take a sip. Yes, I show this video to all my students. Yeah, I love the fact that he's very realistic and talks about saying something, speak the language and stuff. Tim is always a win. Speaks Russian, Arabic and Chinese. Yeah, very good spread for sure. She's 9 years old. Wow, that is quite the diverse group. Yep, definitely. Okay, great. Let's wrap it up right there. Thank you everybody so much for coming. I'm just going to finish with a quick announcement, and after that, if anybody has general questions about teaching online, then I'll answer them. Okay. So my announcement for today, as any of you could tell by looking at my name, it has changed. It's no longer italki teacher Ryan, it's English teacher Ryan. So what on earth has made me change my name on YouTube yet again after changing it the first time about a year and a half ago? Yeah, like my name used to be Ryan Keep Smiling. This was supposed to be a travel and teach YouTube channel. That after a while, I realized that italki teachers were like mainly coming to my channel to watch videos, so I changed it. Right now, here we are a year and a half later, and I'm changing it again. And this will be the last time, I promise. So the reason why I've changed my name is because I find that what's happening in this little community, and we could see it from these interviews from the horse's mouth, what's happening is something that goes beyond italki. And I think that's clear. I think it's clear that the discussions that we're having, the content that we're touching on, it goes much further than italki. And I worry that I might not be able to reach certain people due to the fact that it might be perceived that this is an italki centered page. And clearly it just isn't. These interviews, these past interviews, for example, have not been about italki. They have been about language teaching online, right? So, why don't I call myself language teacher, Ryan? Well, I'm not teaching languages. I do only teach English. And I do hope that people do recognize, they do find that there's content in other languages, and there are principles and pieces of advice which are applicable to people who teach other languages as well, like Almat or Osama, for example, or Alessandra. Um, but I am an English teacher. So that's the reason why I changed my name to English Teacher Ryan. My other YouTube channel was called English Teacher Ryan. Now it's called English with Teacher Ryan. And that's my YouTube channel where I give learners tips. All right. So that is in a nutshell why I've made this change. As I told you, I promise it's the last time. But I hope that this better represents my channel. I hope it makes it more clear for other people who want tips. And my real goal is just to help, expedite the process of finding this information, of, when people type in online, like how to teach English online, how to teach a language online, I want them to be able to find these tips easily. That's where I wish I had been when I started 2.5 years ago. So that's it. I'll take my little bow right there. That's my big announcement. Okay. As always, thank you so much, everybody, for your support. I'll stick around for another few minutes to answer any general questions. And after that, we could wrap things up. Oh, cheers, Almet. I'm glad you think so. Awesome. And oh man, so will you, Osama. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to be coming back to bug all of you for a chat in the time to come. Believe me, especially you two. Um, actually, not this year, Almat, but next year I'll be going on my honeymoon with my fiance, and Ireland will be our first stop, and we'll be going through Europe. So hopefully I'll be able to sit down and meet you. I spoke to Kenny, one of the interviewees. He told me about meeting his students and how wild that is, because I've never met any of my students or any people I really kind of speak to online. So yes, I do plan on going to Europe, and I'm hoping to meet a few of my students and maybe even some of the interviewees, if any of them live there. Well, I know some of them live there. Do you have a lot of teacher friends? Huh. Wow, I'm gonna sound like such a loser, but what do you mean by friends? Um, yeah, I don't know if that's a pun on my, catchphrase, teacher friends, but it's, clearly I don't have many friends because I'm laughing at my own jokes. But yeah, so, do I have a lot of friends who are also teachers? Not really, actually. And honestly, even when it even when it comes, thank you, Francesca, I appreciate that. Even when it comes to just speaking, like just having off time and taking a break and decompressing from teaching, I like to learn about other things. I would much rather pick up a book about like philosophy or about psychology or about biology to kind of get my mind away from some of this stuff sometimes. The YouTube side and the italki side I love, but you have to understand I'm also in my master's degree for teaching, right? For like second language instruction. So sometimes, teaching and talking about pedagogy all the time, sometimes it's a little bit too much for me. So I think it's a good thing that I don't have too many teacher friends, like, in real life, but in terms of virtual friends, I'd like to think that we're all friends. All the people in our, community. And Francesca says, "Yes, you do know a lot of teachers, basically." Yeah, that's it. For sure, for sure. Um, yeah, a lot of teaching, especially with yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, I'm just kind of swimming in it. But we have 6 weeks, 2 months left. 2 months left, and then we're done. Absolutely on that. That would be an absolute pleasure, 100%. Yeah, maybe you'll be over here in Canada. Apprendre le français. Well, you don't have to, learn French. You could probably teach it. Most Canadians don't know French. All right, folks, what a great time. I'll be doing a live stream again soon. Have a fantastic day. Keep watching the videos, keep learning, keep teaching, and keep smiling, teacher friends. I'll see you all shortly. Okay. C'est Oui, oui, fantastique. Merci, Osama. Oh man, great to see all you. All right, take care. See you all soon. Bye now. Ciao.